guys, this is Shelly with Shelly Cooks. Today I'm doing a video on how to salt ribs, or you could do the same thing with beef if you wanted. We call that corned beef. But I'm from the Maritimes, and there we serve something called a boiled dinner, in which you do salt ribs and you'll add a bunch of vegetables like carrots and turnips and parsnips, potatoes, cabbage to it, and it's absolutely magnificent. But it's becoming more and more expensive to buy quality salt ribs or corned beef. So a couple of years ago, I actually made my own after watching a video by this lady in Newfoundland called Benita's Kitchen. And I'm going to share with you how she does it and how I do it. So stick around. I'm going to bring you up close so that you can see how I remove the silver silver skin from the back of the ribs. I already have my salt water that I put on earlier and cooled, and I will give you the proportions for that. And I'll show you how we put it in the bucket and what we need to do with it. So here we go. So what I normally do is I'll keep my eye open for ribs when they're on sale, and they were a few weeks ago. So I just had my son grab a bunch for me and threw them in the freezer until I was going to salt them, because that was the plan. You can do the same thing with, as I said, with beef. The process that I'm going to show you now, you can do the exact same thing with beef, but you would cut it up in the size portions that you want. And if I were you, I would choose a fattier roast, something like a blade or something that's got a fair bit of fat on it, because that's what gives you the flavor often when you're salting these. So all I did just now was I removed the silver skin. You take a knife and you just put it under the skin and you peel it all back, and that's how we clean that up. So I have a bit more here, ribs here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them in the portions that I want to serve them. And so normally that's about, you want to do about maybe 3 ribs or so. You want a pretty decent sized portion, right? So let me find a good one here to cut. So this is good. This is what I like right here. It has a little bit of fat in it, as you can see, and it's still like a good amount of meat in that. And it's hard to find ribs nowadays. These are pork back ribs, by the way, but it's hard to find ribs nowadays that will give you that. So now I'm just going to put them all in my bucket here that I have. And this is a food grade bucket, just to let you know. And what we're going to do is we're going to eventually add our salt brine to it, and that will go in the refrigerator for a week or so. So as I was saying, you can do the same thing with beef, the exact same thing with beef, with the process that we're going to be doing here. Okay, I've seen some videos where people will add things like juniper berries or other spices to it. Where I come from, we just do the simple rib thing. That's it. That's a little big, but I'm going to put it in. I'll try to do 3 instead of 4 ribs with each cut. That one was 4, I believe. So for the brine, what you will do is you will put on water to boil, and for every 4 cups of water, you're going to add a half a cup of salt. Okay, so that depends upon how much water you're going to need, how many ribs you're going to. So just use that ratio for your brine, and it should work out pretty well for you. So let's go. Now, after a week, what you're going to do is you're going to pull this out of the refrigerator. You're going to take all of the ribs out of it, and you're going to check and make sure that your brine looks good. You're going to make sure that your brine isn't slimy and that your ribs were well covered in it. That's something you have to make sure of as well when you put them in the refrigerator to cure. Okay, so you may have to put a weight or something on them, but just make sure that they are well submerged in the brine. There we go. So I did some water up earlier today, and I let it cool. And then I was looking at the ribs I have, and I was like, I may need a little more. So I put some more salt water on, because it has to be cooled before you can add it to the bucket. Before we go on, guys, I just wanted to add a bit of a disclaimer here, okay? This is how I have done ribs before, salted ribs, and it has worked 100% for me, and there was no issue with it spoiling, with people getting sick from it, and that sort of thing. And I looked for a recipe like this because often they want you to use the pink curing salts and that sort of thing that I don't really trust, to be honest with you, and they've been associated with some health issues for some people. That is just my opinion. But by all means, you do what you like to do. But I just want to say, this is sort of like rebel pickling, if you will, okay? It goes against what most people say you should do. I use pickling salt, and that's what's recommended, that Bonita recommended that you use. And as I said, this is something that I tested a few years ago, and it worked beautifully. Matter of fact, people had said that they were the best that they'd ever had. So I hope that'll encourage you to at least give it a try. So the ratio, as I said, is 4 cups of water to a half a cup of your pickling salt. And let that boil on the stove until the salt is dissolved, and then you're going to let that cool completely. And then as I've cleaned up my ribs, and this is something else I should add, is with my ribs, what I do is I put them in a sink, I wash them really well, I take about a half a cup of baking soda, I sprinkle that in with them in a fresh water, and I wash and scrub them really well, rinse them, and then I put them in again with another half a cup of water and let them sit for about 30 minutes. And the reason I do that is because I think that it sort of tenderizes it. And there's, in Chinese cooking, there's this thing where they call velveting when you use baking soda. And I really, really think that that's what happens with these, because these are incredible when they're done. So, as I said, you can do what you like, but these are ways that I do it, and I'm very pleased with the product that I get. And so after I let these salt sit in the brine, I'll check them every week. I've even had to change the water. You can let them sit for 2 weeks, and they should be fine to eat. I have let mine sit for as much as 4 weeks, and I've changed the water a couple of times during that process. And keep in mind that they're fully submerged in the brine, and they're refrigerated the entire time. Then what I have done is, because I do so many, then what I have done is I've taken them out of the brine, patted them dry, and vacuum sealed them. And when you use them, you take them out of the freezer and you defrost them and use them. They're exactly as if you had they were fresh and you just took them out of the brine. So that's another tip if you'd like to do quite a bit to preserve them, and then freeze them, because we don't always have the refrigerator space for buckets. So once it is pickled, or it's cured, or whatever you like to call it, or salted as we call it, then what you do is you can just put it in freezer bags and freeze it by all means. So, and as I said again, this is a food grade bucket that I have with a lid. There needs to be a lid with it, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm giving this one final stir. There's no salt that I can see, so I know it is fully dissolved. And I'm going to start putting the broth, or the broth, I'm going to start putting the salted water in the bucket. And I'm going to layer these ribs in as I put the water in, because I want to make sure that there's plenty of water between it all, this salted water. So, this is what we do. We just build it up as we go. We know that there's lots of water in between. There are no air pockets. Something tells me I should cut this big one in half, but I'm not going to. It looks beautiful. There we go. Lots more. And I always put them in, I'm not sure why, but I always put them in with the fatty part facing down. I was worried this bucket wasn't going to be big enough. This is 4 racks of ribs, by the way. And I think this is just going to be perfect, the bucket size, because it's going to give me enough room to put something, a bowl or something on top of it as a weight. As I said, the original recipe I saw was on Bonita's Kitchen. So by all means, you can go to check her out as well. She does not do the baking soda. That was just my little edition. But she does have some other fantastic recipes, especially if you're from the Maritimes or particularly from Newfoundland. She's an incredible lady. Whoopsie. So there, fully submerged. I'm going to bring you in so you can see. And even though I cleaned this up, there's still a bit of stuff on it. I don't think you can see that. Maybe I'll bring you in. Okay, guys, that's what it looks like. So now I'm actually going to put a weight on it. I may add a tiny bit more water just to let you know that I did have enough of the salt water. I didn't need to put more on earlier. So for 4 racks of ribs, I had 16 cups of water, and I think it was 2 cups of pickling salt, and that was plenty. Let me show you what it looks like when I have something on top and I get ready to refrigerate it. There we go. I have the plate on top of it, and it's fully submerged perfectly. Now I'm going to put the lid on it and put it in the refrigerator, and that'll be it. Okay, guys, so how easy was that? When you find ribs on sale, you can get pork back ribs or you can get pork side ribs. When you find them on sale, I'm going to seal this up really well and put it in the refrigerator. But when you find them on sale, buy them. Freeze them if you can't do it right away, because that's the key to doing this. Find yourself a food grade bucket. This one happens to be from Canadian Tire. The lid is food grade as well. It's all so simple to do, and it really takes you no time, and you get a quality product that you're doing yourself. But as I said, this is considered a bit of rebel preserving, if you will, because I do not use the curing salt that most people suggest you use, and I followed the method that Benita did, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful product, and you will not be disappointed. Just be sure that you check it often in the refrigerator to make sure it's not getting slimy, or that it's not starting to, water hasn't started to go off a bit. I've had to change my water, like I said. I like to do mine for at least 4 weeks. And I've had to change mine a few times in that, but it's just, again, simple. You do the same brine on the stove again, let it cool, clean your bucket out completely, take your ribs out, rinse them off, repack them again in the bucket with the fresh salted water. So thanks so much for joining me. If you decide to give this a try, please let us know in the notes below. Take a second to just hit that subscribe button, and we'll let you know when our next video is up. Take care. God bless. This is like a postscript, I guess. One other thing that I do that I think maybe you ought to do is I put the date on the lid, and every week when I check it, I'll add the new date. And if I change the salt water in it, I'll put a little check by the date so that I will know that. Just kind of keeps me on track, because I have so many things on the go that it keeps me on track, and I'll know what's going on with it. I will also put a reminder in my calendar on my phone, so that a week from now I'll get an alert saying that I need to check this. So that's just another idea. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.